A really annoying part of selling a physical product online is returns. It's something that I do personally think that you have to accept, but it is extremely frustrating. Now, obviously, it depends on what the reason for return is. If an item is defective, I don't really have a problem at all returning that. It's still annoying and it still does kind of mess up the books, if you will, but if it is something that's faulty, whilst that is not necessarily a fault of mine explicitly, I do have to now take that onus if I am going to resell the product. So when something's faulty, I don't have a problem with it. What I get slightly annoyed with though, or actually quite annoyed with, is when somebody returns an item because they just didn't like it. Now we're talking specifically about eBay here. As you will know, I'm trying to expand into new sales channels, but we're talking about eBay here, but the same can apply to multiple platforms. Now it doesn't happen often, but now and again you do get items returned as just didn't like it. Now I'd imagine that this will obviously vary depending on what category you sell in. I've heard of clothing sellers having items returned as just didn't like it when people have bought, say, a wedding dress or a suit just to return it, and it looks like they've just worn that to an event and now they want to give it back, essentially giving them that item for free for that wear. Now that's kind of the point that I am dealing with here. I've had items come back as defective, and you know what, fine. I understand that items can be defective, especially items that I am selling for an extremely low price. Most of them do work, so I'm not concerned about the quality there, but you know, if you've sold, say, 200 items of one piece, it does make sense that maybe 4 a month will be defective. It's just a cost that you have to account for in the business. That's fine, but I want to talk about what I do with defective items or returns, how I deal with returns. Do I accept them? As you guys will know, it's a yes, and ultimately what is happening with my returns policy. So right now I accept returns for every single reason, and I want that to continue. I've made a full video on it before, but I do not accept refunds under any circumstance unless the item did not arrive. If the item is lost in post, which does happen from now and again, but it's happened like twice in the whole time of operating this business, selling over 300 items, so it does happen, but rarely. If it doesn't come, you can have a full refund, as that is not your fault. Admittedly, it's not necessarily my fault if I have sent the item out, but you know, it's not on the customer that the item didn't arrive, so fair enough. So that's the only time that I will give a refund. When it comes to returns, however, best not mix them up, I will accept returns for anything, and that's usually fine. Again, the only times that I usually get returns is the fact that the item is defective. Now, admittedly, it's not always defective. It's, especially with smartwatches, a case of this item didn't work, when in actuality, it just didn't pair with their phone because it said very clearly that it doesn't work with, say, a BlackBerry or a non-smartphone or something like that, and people just misread. So even in that case, fair. The ones that I don't like I just said though, are the ones that return it for just didn't like the item, especially when they've worn the item a lot first. Now I've got one watch of this description coming back. In my opinion, it's a really nice watch. I already have this one in stock and I've had it in stock for weeks, so I've seen the quality of it and all that kind of stuff. I've had more of that item actually coming today. It's behind the camera. And I have to say, it's a beautiful watch. I was saying just this morning, I really love the face of it. The colour is gorgeous. Now, somebody's returning this item as just didn't like it. This watch is about £100 in value. So obviously that is quite a big cost. I don't mind if that's the case. I've even accepted just didn't like it returns for no reason before. But the thing is, those returns were in new condition. I've said, if this item comes and you decide you don't want it or something like that, keep it in new condition, send it back to me. And a lot of the time, buyers are fine with that. After all, if you say you don't want something, why not keep it new? Why should you be opening up if you don't even want it? Now, what we're talking about here is somebody who's opened up a £100 item, worn it for, I think, if I check the date on the order, a couple of weeks, because you have to remember I accept 30-day returns. They've worn it for a few weeks and now they think it's coming back. Because I already have automatic returns on, it is coming back. But the thing is, this is one of those frustrating cases, because the reason given for why they didn't like it is it's not a very good quality. Now, like I said, I have this here to actually compare to. I've looked at every single version of this watch I've sent out. I do this with all my items, especially the traditional watches, because they are extremely easy to test. Unlike smartwatches where it might be a bit more difficult, I'd have to probably remove the wrapping, making the item not look new anymore. But with traditional watches, it's very easy to check. Are the hands moving? Oftentimes, yes. It depends if it's a manual wind or automatic wind or a quartz. But oftentimes, the hands are going to move very easily. On top of that, it's like, is the packaging good? Are the day date indicators working? All that kind of stuff. Usually it's a yes, so no problems there. So I know this item works completely fine, but it is coming back. But now that I'm accepting a £100 item almost back for returns, the question is what happens? Because we all know that this item is not going to be worth £100 anymore, because this person's worn it for weeks and then decided that they didn't like it. Now, unfortunately, I have no idea what condition this watch is going to come back in. I'm praying it's like new, even if it is without the packaging, but I'd like to see it with the box and hopefully with a plastic wrap, but fair enough if it's not. But this is where things get difficult, because like, a watch is quite an intimate item to a degree. It's on someone's wrist, and you know, I'm not really going to go into the hygiene and all that kind of stuff, but you get what I mean. It is a personal item. So this is now not going to be in new condition. It's like, how do I get rid of this? Because like, do I clean it and keep it for myself? Well, this is a business, so no. But I'm not going to be able to sell it now as new. So it's like, how do I value that? And it's going to be a lot harder to shift this product as second-hand or used than it is going to be as new. So this customer has put me in a bit of a predicament here. Also, I'm thinking, what do I actually do about the refund? Because on eBay, you don't have to give somebody a full refund. You can offer them a partial refund, and you can have your deductions as to why this is. So obviously, if this item comes back in bad condition, scratched and everything, I'm going to be there thinking, do I leave them a full refund? Now, obviously, it is probably in my best interest to do so, because otherwise they might leave me negative feedback, which might be a minor thing, but it could obviously cloud people's judgments in the future, and that could cost me more financially than I could lose from just, you know, losing money on a £100 watch to begin with. But if any of you guys sell new items, or at least good condition items, you will know what I'm talking about here. Admittedly, I haven't fully seen the state of this item yet, but it's a new item that's been worn for a couple of days or weeks and now is getting sent back. And that is honestly one of the more frustrating things, especially on these high ticket items. And I'm not the only seller that I've heard of this happening to. I've decided for me that I'm not going to sell on eBay extremely expensive watches. My maximum limit that I want to sell a watch for on eBay is maybe £300. I did consider a couple of weeks ago selling items like Rolexes or Omegas on my store, but now I'm certainly reconsidering that because of things like this. And I have seen people on eBay and heard stories on people on YouTube who do sell things like Rolexes, who have had items worn for a couple of days and sent back in horrendous condition. So now it's like, no matter what, they're going to lose money on this item. And that's kind of the place that I'm in at the minute. Anyway, unfortunately, just like many on this channel, this is a bit of a rant video. I'm not trying to complain, but I know a lot of you guys will be able to relate to this, so please drop me a comment if you know what I'm talking about. And also, if you have any advice, if you're more experienced than me, tell me what you would do. Would you offer this person a full refund? Would you offer them a partial refund, citing that it's been worn, or something else? Tell me what you would do in the comments below. Anyway, thank you for watching and joining me in this one. More to come later in the week.